Hi guys, so today is pretty similar to what we did yesterday, except we're adding in integers. So instead of all positive numbers, you might see some negative numbers in your combining like terms as well. So by the end of the hour, you should be able to combine like terms and use distributive property to simplify. Pretty much what you did yesterday as well. Okay. So here's our review. Evaluate the expression below. This was from chapter 1. This was what you did for your warm-up. We have -8 plus -9. Remember, same signs, add and keep. These guys have the same signs, so I added them together. 8 and 9 create 17, and I keep the sign. So they're both negative, so my answer is negative as well. -7 minus -2. Here, I need to KFC my problem. So I really have -7 plus 2. Now I can figure out, what do I do here? Well, these have different signs, so I'm actually going to find the difference between 7 and 2, which is 5. And I'm going to keep the sign of the higher number. 7 is higher, so there's more negative numbers than there were positive, so it's a -5. Again, this is review back from chapter 1, but you're going to need it in today's skills. So we learned yesterday, we reviewed yesterday, how do I combine like terms? Remember, the same variables can go together and constants can go together. But if they have a different variable or no variable at all, you can't combine them with ones that have a variable or have a different one. Only the same variables can go together. So when I look at this problem here, the first thing I see is my constants, which again just means a number without a variable attached to it. So here I see a -8 and a +9. Well, when I have a -8 and +9 and I put them together, that's really saying -8 plus 9. I can even write it over to the side here. -8 plus 9. Well, I have different signs, so I'm going to find the difference between those, which is 1. And I'm going to keep the sign of the higher number. 9 is a higher number. It has more positives than negatives. So I just have 1. Now I'm ready to combine my b's. I have b's here. So I have a positive b plus -3b. Remember, if a variable is by itself, it just means that there's an invisible 1 in front of it. That really says 1b plus -3b's. So what I can do over to the side over here is I can say 1 plus -3. 1 plus -3. Well, we know how to do that. We did that in chapter 1. There are different signs, so I'm going to subtract them to get a 2. And I'm going to keep the sign of the higher number. Well, 3 is higher, so it's really going to be a negative. Don't forget your b, -2b. And then we can throw an addition sign in there. 1 plus -2b. Or I can say 1 put together with -2b. But you can't actually combine them because they have different, one has a b and one doesn't. So you cannot combine any further. You could have left your answer as 1 minus 2b, because if you were to KFC this, if you were to KFC 1 minus 2b, you would get 1 plus -2b. So these two answers are really the same. It doesn't matter which one you use. Let's go ahead and you try this one. 10 plus 2f plus -2 minus -f. Whew. Go ahead, try it in your notebook. We'll pause the video while you work. All right, so let's see here what we can combine. I always start with my constants. That's just how my brain works, but you really could have started anywhere. So I have 10 plus a -2. Well, 10 plus -2, these are different signs, so I'm really going to find the difference between them is an 8, and I'm going to keep the sign of the higher number. There's more 10s than 2s, so there's more positives than negatives. Now I can move on to my f's. I have a +2f minus a negative f. So I can rewrite that over to the side, which is really 2 minus negative 1. I got rid of my f's just so it's easier for me to see the math, but I do know that there are f's attached to those numbers. I can KFC this to get 2 plus 1, which is going to give me 3. So really, 2f minus negative f is a positive 3f. So I have 8 and 3f, or 8 plus 3f. Go ahead and look at another example. This one's a little bit longer. I'm going to start here with my constants, just like I did last time. I have a negative 6, a positive 3, and it looks like that's it. So negative 6 plus 3 is really going to give me negative 3 because they're different signs, so I find the difference and I keep the sign of the higher number. Now I can move on to my a's. I have a positive 2a plus a negative 3a. 2 plus negative 3. Find the difference, which is going to be 1. 3 is higher than 2, so it's actually going to be a negative 3 or a negative 1a. I could just leave it as my negative 3 minus 1a, or I like to just throw addition signs in there. But I still have this minus z here, and it looks like there's nothing that minus z can even combine with. So I just carry it down, minus z. If you wrote it like this, negative 3 minus a minus z, that's the exact same thing, okay? Adding a negative is the same as subtracting a positive. It's the same thing. And 1a is the same as just a. Let's go ahead and you try this symbol or this one here. We'll pause the video while you work. So I'm going to start here with my constants. I see I have a 14 and a plus 3. I don't see any other lonely numbers. So I'm just going to go 14 plus 3. That's a 17. Then I'm going to move on to my s's, mainly because that's what's next. I have a negative 2s. That plus out in front doesn't really mean anything. Okay, it's just there. So I've got a negative 2s, and that's it. So basically, I'm just going to carry this whole thing down. Plus negative 2s. And like I said before, if the plus wasn't there and you just said minus 2s, it's the same thing. So you didn't need to carry down the plus if you didn't want to. Now I'm going to move on to my t's. I have a negative t plus a negative 8t. So negative 1 plus negative 8. That's really negative 9. So negative 9t. I like to throw pluses in there just because it helps me visually see it. But this whole problem is the same as saying 17 minus 2s minus 9t. So those pluses doesn't change anything. You could have them in there or you could take them out. Doesn't matter. Okay. Whatever table number you're at is the number I would like you to try, please. Once you've tried it, talk with your table and see how you did. All right, let's go ahead and check these answers. If you're having trouble reading any, just ask and I can clarify. The order for these don't really matter, guys. You could have had negative 5 plus negative 4n. You could have had negative 4n minus 5 and gotten rid of the plus altogether. All right, let's go ahead and look at another example. Now we're bringing in that distributive property that we learned about yesterday, or reviewed yesterday. We learned about it in 6th grade. This is saying negative 5 groups of x plus 4. So we want to distribute that negative 5 to the x and to the 4. So we really have negative 5x and a negative 20, because negative 5 times 4 is negative 20. And we can just carry down this plus symbol. Negative 5 plus negative 20. Or if you would have written it as negative 5x minus 20, you would still be right. Let's go ahead and you tried this one, distributing that 5 to everything inside. All right, so this 5 will distribute to the x to give us 5x, and the 5 will distribute to the negative 4. 5 times negative 4 is really negative 20. And I can just bring that plus down, or not. 5x minus 20 is the same as 5x plus a negative 20. We'll start to see that addition and positives are pretty much the same thing. Negatives and subtraction are pretty much the same thing. Okay. Whew, now we got a longer one. First, we need to try the distributive property. So this negative 3 needs to distribute to everything inside the parentheses. So negative 3 times x is negative 3x, plus negative 3 times 2 is a negative 6, plus my negative 9 that was on the outside. Now I can combine like terms. I have two constants here, my negative 6 and my negative 9. So I can combine negative 6 and negative 9. So I have negative 3x plus negative 15, because I'm combining a negative 6 with a negative 9. Go ahead and you try this one. We'll pause the video while you work. All right, so the 4 can combine with everything inside the parentheses. So I have 4 times x and 4 times 7. That gives me 4x plus 28. Don't forget about that negative 5 out in front. Now, if possible, I need to combine like terms. So the negative 5 can combine with the positive 28. Negative 5 with 28. Think back to your chips, guys. If I had 5 red chips, because they're negative, and 28 green chips, what would cancel out? What would I have left? Well, I would have a 4x plus 23. 5 negative chips would cancel out, 5 positive chips, 23 chips left. If you wrote it as 23 plus 4x instead, still good to go. All right, so we will continue practicing this skill. I know it can be a little bit overwhelming, so we'll continue to practice it, but hopefully you have a good idea of how to combine those like terms at this point.